The Silent Watchers, the council chamber of the Galactic Assembly, floated in the void between stars, a crystalline structure that had witnessed the rise and fall of empires for 10,000 cycles. Today its halls echoed with a tension that Admiral Kickstar of the Velkaran Imperium had never felt in his 3 centuries of service. "They're waking up," whispered Ambassador Thelris, her silver skin reflecting the holographic star map that dominated the chamber's center. A single yellow star pulsed at its heart, surrounded by concentric rings of warning markers. Kickstar's 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the primitive world orbiting that star. Sol 3 Earth, the quarantine zone. For over 50,000 galactic standard years it had been forbidden territory, sealed by ancient decree from the First Assembly, a council so old that most species considered it mythological. "Impossible," growled Commander Vexoth, his crystalline carapace clicking with agitation. "The archaeological surveys confirmed it. They destroyed themselves in nuclear fire millennia ago. We detected the radiation signatures." The consensus was unanimous. Primitive, violent, extinct. Thelris gestured and the hologram shifted. Dozens of data streams materialized, each one painting an impossible picture. Energy signatures, quantum communications, fusion drives igniting in the darkness beyond their moon. And strangest of all, gravitational anomalies that suggested they had cracked the secret of faster-than-light travel. 3 cycles ago, they were confined to their homeworld, Thelris said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. 2 cycles ago, they established colonies on their neighboring planets. 1 cycle ago, they built a structure in their asteroid belt that our analysts still cannot explain. And yesterday, she paused, her skin shifting to a troubled deep blue. Yesterday, one of their ships appeared at the edge of quarantine zone perimeter Gamma. The chamber erupted. Delegates from 40 species began shouting simultaneously, their translation matrices struggling to keep pace with the chaos. Kickstar raised his primary manipulator for silence, but the pandemonium continued until a deep, resonant voice cut through the noise like a blade through water. "Enough." Grand Arbiter Melkanos materialized at the chamber's apex, his ancient form barely corporeal after 10,000 years of existence, the eldest of the First Assembly's surviving members, a being who had personally sealed the quarantine around Sol 3 and watched it for epochs while civilizations bloomed and withered around him. "You sealed them away," Kickstar said, unable to keep the accusation from his tone. "The record said it was for our protection, but you never explained why. Now they're breaking containment and we have a right to know what threat we're facing." Melkanos descended slowly, his form solidifying as he approached the hologram, his eyes, ancient and sorrowful, fixed on the yellow star. "Not a threat," he said quietly. "A reckoning." The chamber fell silent. 50,000 years ago we found them in their Bronze Age, primitive, violent, but promising. The First Assembly sent observers, as we always do with developing species. We studied them for millennia. We watched them war and struggle and dream. His form flickered with something that might have been regret. Then we made a mistake. Thelris leaned forward. "What mistake?" "We underestimated them," Melkanos said. "When they developed nuclear weapons, we predicted, like every other species in the galaxy's history, that they would use them to destroy themselves within a century. Every single model, every simulation, every historical precedent pointed to extinction, so we prepared to catalog their remains and move on. But they didn't use them," Kickstar said slowly, understanding dawning. "Oh, they used them," Melkanos corrected. "Twice on their own kind. And then..." He gestured at the hologram, and it shifted backward through time, showing Earth's surface across the centuries. They stopped. Not because they lost the capability, not because we intervened. They simply chose differently. They looked at the edge of their own extinction and stepped back. Vexoth's carapace rippled with confusion. "That's impossible. Aggression at that developmental stage is hardwired. It's universal." "We thought so too," Melkanos said. "So we watched more closely. We saw them reach their moon using primitive chemical rockets, a feat that took the Velkarans 3,000 years and gravitic technology to achieve. We saw them build networks that connected their entire species in real-time communication. We saw them sequence their own genetic code and begin to cure their diseases. And we saw something that terrified us more than any weapon." The hologram shifted again, showing images of Earth's surface, cities of glass and steel, green spaces reclaimed from industry. Monuments to peace standing where battlefields once raged. They learned to cooperate, Melcano said. Different tribes, different beliefs, different genetic variations, things that tear other species apart for millennia. They began to bridge those gaps, slowly, painfully, imperfectly, but they did it. And when we ran new models accounting for this adaptation, the projections showed something we had never seen before. What? Thelris whispered. Melcanos turned to face the assembly, his ancient eyes burning with an emotion that might have been fear, or awe, or both. Unlimited potential, he said. Within 10,000 years, our models showed them surpassing every known civilization. Not in one field, in all of them. Technology, philosophy, art, war. He paused. Especially war. Because while they learned cooperation, they never forgot how to fight. They just became selective about when. Kickstar felt his blood chill. So you quarantined them. We quarantined them, Melcanos confirmed. For the galaxy's protection. For our protection. We sealed them away and hoped they would stagnate. Trapped in their system forever. He looked back at the hologram, at the ships now moving through the darkness with impossible grace. But hope is not a strategy. And now, Admiral Kickstar, they are awake, and I fear we are not ready for what comes next. An alarm pierced the chamber. Thelris's skin flashed crimson as new data flooded her consciousness. Grand Arbiter, she said, her voice barely controlled. We're receiving a transmission. From the quarantine perimeter. It's them. The humans. They're requesting permission to address the assembly. For the first time in his ancient existence, Melcanos looked uncertain. Then I suppose, he said quietly, we should let them in. First contact, the human ship that materialized at the assembly's threshold was nothing like the crude fusion-powered vessels that had been detected weeks earlier. This craft moved through space like a living thing, its hull seeming to shimmer between dimensions, bending light and gravity in ways that made Kickstar's tactical implants scream with warning alerts. Impossible, breathed Thelris, her analytical mind processing the sensor data. That's not fusion. That's not even antimatter. That energy signature. It's drawing power from quantum vacuum fluctuations, technology we've theorized for millennia but never achieved. The ship held position just beyond the assembly's defensive perimeter, a gesture that was somehow both respectful and deeply confident. It made no aggressive moves, but its very presence was a statement. We could be anywhere and you would never see us coming. Vexoth's combat instincts flared. We should activate the Omega Protocol. Quarantine enforcement. We have the authority. And start a war we cannot win. Melcanos interrupted, his voice sharp. Look at that ship, Commander. Really look at it. Count the ways it could destroy this station before we completed the activation sequence. The silence that followed was answer enough. Open a channel, Kickstar ordered, his military training overriding his instincts. When facing a superior force, gather intelligence. Let's hear what they have to say. The holographic emitters flickered, and a figure materialized in the center of the chamber. Human, female. Young by the standards of most long-lived species, but her eyes carried the weight of someone who had seen things that aged the soul beyond years. She wore a simple uniform of dark blue fabric, devoid of the ornate decorations most species used to display rank. A single insignia adorned her chest, a pale blue sphere cradled in two hands rendered in silver thread. Honorable members of the Galactic Assembly, she said, her voice clear and steady. The translation matrix captured not just her words but the subtle harmonics beneath them. Determination, careful control, and underneath it all, barely restrained fury. My name is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Expeditionary Fleet. I speak for humanity. Kickstar stepped forward, his forearms spreading in the traditional gesture of parley. Captain Chen, I am Admiral Kickstar of the Velkaran Imperium, current security chair of this assembly. Your presence here violates the quarantine protocols established by the first assembly 50,000 years ago, Chen interrupted smoothly. Yes, Admiral, we know. We've known for quite some time. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Melcanos's form flickered with surprise. How? The ancient arbiter demanded. The quantum seals around your system were perfect, undetectable, unbreachable. Chen's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes hardened. Were they? Let me tell you what we know, Grand Arbiter. 20 years ago, our astronomers detected an anomaly. a subtle distortion in the cosmic microwave background, forming a perfect sphere exactly 1 light-year from our sun. The mathematics were too precise to be natural, so we investigated. She gestured, and data began flowing from the human ship into the assembly's systems. Kickstar watched in fascination as decades of human research unfolded, primitive at first, then rapidly accelerating in sophistication. It took us 15 years to understand what we were seeing, Chen continued. A containment field, advanced, elegant, impenetrable. She paused, and now her anger began to show through. A cage, constructed by beings who decided humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to exist among the stars. It was for the galaxy's protection, Vexoth protested. Your species is violent, unstable. Was, Chen corrected coldly. Past tense, Commander. The civilization you observed and judged doesn't exist anymore. We grew. We changed. We became better than we were. Her eyes swept the chamber. But you never gave us the chance to prove that, did you? You just locked us away and hoped we'd die in our cage. Melkanos floated forward, his ancient face grave. How did you break the seal, Captain? That technology should have been beyond you for millennia. For the first time, Chen smiled. A sharp, predatory expression that made several delegates flinch. That's the thing about cages, Grand Arbiter. They make excellent laboratories. When you know you're trapped, when you know there's a barrier you cannot cross, you become very motivated to understand it. We had nothing but time, and humanity's one consistent trait throughout history is our refusal to accept limitations. She pulled up another hologram, equations and theoretical frameworks that made even Thelris's advanced mind struggle to follow. We couldn't brute force the barrier, so we studied it. For 2 decades, every quantum physicist on Earth focused on one question: how does it work? And once we understood the principles, Chen's smile widened. Well, it turns out that any lock can be picked if you understand the mechanism. We didn't break your seal, Grand Arbiter. We just learned to open it from the inside. The implication struck Kickstar like a physical blow. Humanity had been sealed away with first assembly technology, artifacts so advanced that most current species couldn't even comprehend them. And in 20 years, they had reverse-engineered it. You're afraid, Chen said, her voice softening slightly as she looked at Melkanos. I can see it. You're afraid of what we might become, what we might do. She took a breath. I understand. Our history is violent. We've done terrible things to ourselves and to our world. We don't deny that. But you made a critical error in your assessment. And what was that? Melkanos asked quietly. You assumed that violence was all we were, Chen said. You saw our wars and our weapons and our capacity for destruction, and you missed everything else. You missed our art, our philosophy, our dreams. You missed the fact that the same species that invented nuclear weapons also created the Universal Declaration of Rights. That the same minds that engineered viruses also cured diseases. That we are not one thing or another. We are everything, complex and contradictory, and constantly evolving. She stepped forward, her holographic form seemingly solid despite the impossible distance between her ship and the station. We're not here to threaten you, she said firmly. We're not here to wage war or demand reparations for 50,000 years of imprisonment. We're here because we believe in something that you apparently abandoned long ago. What? Thelris asked, genuinely curious. The possibility of understanding, Chen said simply. The chance to learn from each other. The hope that different species can work together not because they're the same but because they're different, and that difference makes them stronger. Her eyes swept the chamber again. We're here to join the galactic community, not as conquerors, not as subordinates, as equals. The chamber fell silent. Finally, Vexoth spoke, his voice heavy with skepticism. Pretty words, Captain, but words are easy. How can we trust that humanity won't become the threat we always feared? Chen's expression grew solemn. You can't, Commander. Trust isn't given. It's earned through action, which is why we're offering something unprecedented. She gestured, and new data flooded the assembly's systems. Kickstar's eyes widened as he processed what he was seeing. That's he started, unable to believe it. Every major technological advancement humanity has achieved in the last 50 years, Chen confirmed. Quantum computing, genetic medicine, fusion power, quantum vacuum energy extraction, even the principles behind our faster-than-light drive. We're offering it freely to the assembly. No strings attached, no demands for payment, no conditions. Why? Melkanos asked, his ancient voice filled with suspicion. Because we remember what it was like to struggle, Chen said quietly. Because we know what it means to face extinction and pull back from the edge. Because we believe that knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. She met the Arbiter's gaze steadily. And because we want to prove that humanity is not the monster you think we are. We're just people who were locked in the dark for a very long time. And now that we're finally free, we'd like to turn on the lights. The Reckoning. 3 cycles passed before the assembly reached its decision. 3 cycles during which Captain Chen's ship remained at the perimeter, a silent reminder of humanity's patience and its power. 3 cycles during which every species in the galaxy debated whether to embrace or reject Earth's offer. Kixtar spent those cycles analyzing every scrap of human data, and what he found both amazed and terrified him. The humans hadn't lied. Their technological gifts were genuine, revolutionary, and freely given. But beneath the generosity lay something more profound. A message written in mathematics and engineering that only someone with military training could fully appreciate. We are showing you how we think, how we solve problems, how we innovate. And if you're wise, you'll understand that this is just a fraction of what we're capable of. It was the most elegant threat Kixtar had ever witnessed. By revealing their methods, humanity demonstrated their superiority while maintaining perfect diplomatic courtesy. On the 3rd day, the assembly reconvened. Grand Arbiter Melkanos floated at the chamber's center, his ancient form more substantial than before, as if the decision had somehow restored him. Captain Chen, he began, the assembly has reviewed your proposal. We have debated, argued, and, I will be honest, nearly fractured over what to do about humanity's emergence. Chen's holographic form appeared, her expression carefully neutral. Behind her, visible through the viewer, Kixtar could see the interior of her ship, humans working at stations with calm efficiency, their faces reflecting the same measured control as their captain. The vote was not unanimous, Melkanos continued, but the majority has decided to extend provisional membership to Earth, subject to a probationary period of 50 cycles. During this time, humanity will be granted access to established trade, routes, cultural exchange programs, and scientific collaboration initiatives. You will, however, be restricted from certain high-security sectors until trust can be fully established. Kixtar watched Chen's face carefully, expecting relief or triumph. Instead, he saw only a flicker of disappointment, quickly masked. We accept the Assembly's decision, Chen said formally, and we understand the caution. However, I need to add something to the record before we proceed. Melkanos inclined his head. Speak freely, Captain. Chen's expression hardened. 50,000 years ago you sealed us away because you were afraid. Today you're accepting us with restrictions because you're still afraid. I understand that. Fear is natural when confronting the unknown. She paused. But I want you to understand something about humanity. We've spent our entire existence afraid. Afraid of predators, afraid of starvation, afraid of each other, afraid of the dark between stars. And we learned something important. Fear is a teacher, not a master. She stepped forward, her image solid and commanding. The restrictions you're placing on us, the high-security sectors we can't access, within 10 cycles we'll have independently discovered everything you're trying to keep from us. Within 20 we'll have improved on it. Within 50. She let the implication hang. You're not restricting us for your safety. You're restricting us to give yourselves time to catch up. The chamber erupted in outrage, but Chen's voice cut through the noise. But here's what you still don't understand about humanity, she shouted, and the sheer force of her conviction silenced the delegates. We don't want to surpass you. We don't want to dominate you. We want to learn from you. Every species in This chamber has millennia of history, culture, wisdom that we'll never achieve alone. You've explored corners of the galaxy we haven't imagined. You've solved problems we haven't encountered. You've created art and philosophy and scientific principles that could enrich humanity beyond measure. Her voice softened, becoming almost pleading. Yes, we're innovative. Yes, we're adaptable. Yes, we're probably going to develop technology faster than you're comfortable with. That's just who we are. But that doesn't make us your rivals. It makes us potential partners in building something none of us could achieve alone. Thelris rose from her seat, her silver skin pulsing with emotion. You ask us to trust you, Captain, but trust is a two-way street. How can we believe that humanity will remain cooperative once it realizes its full potential? History shows that powerful species inevitably seek dominance. Vexoth stood again, but this time his voice carried respect rather than suspicion. I second the motion. One by one, delegates rose, some quickly, some reluctantly. But within minutes, the entire assembly stood in silent acknowledgement. The motion carries, Melkanos announced. Humanity is hereby recognized as a full member of the Galactic Assembly, with all rights and responsibilities therein. Captain Chen, welcome to the galactic community. We apologize for being 50,000 years late with our invitation. Chen stood at attention, her military bearing returning. We accept, Grand Arbiter, and we look forward to building a future together. Then her expression softened. But I have one request. Name it. Let us help you, she said simply. The data we've shared contains solutions to problems we know plague galactic civilization: energy scarcity, disease, environmental collapse. But more than that, it contains our perspective, our way of approaching problems. Let us teach you how we think, and in return, teach us how you've survived for so long. Let's learn from each other. Thelris floated forward, her silver skin glowing with curiosity. What makes you think your perspective is so valuable, Captain? What can a species confined to one system for its entire existence teach civilizations that have explored the stars for millennia? Chen's smile was genuine this time. Because we learned to thrive in a cage, Ambassador. We learned to innovate with limited resources. We learned to cooperate despite our differences. We learned to dream of stars we couldn't reach and build technology for journeys we couldn't take. And when we finally broke free, we didn't emerge broken or beaten. We emerged stronger than ever, carrying lessons that can only be learned in darkness. She looked around the chamber at the assembled species. You've explored the galaxy. You've built empires. You've achieved wonders. But you did it with the whole universe open before you. We did it locked in a box, and that makes our achievements different. Not better, just different. And those differences, shared and respected, can benefit everyone. Kickstar stepped forward, offering the traditional Velkaran salute. Then let humanity's first act as full members of the Assembly be a lesson in cooperation. Captain Chen, the Velkaran Imperium would be honored to host a delegation from Earth. Let us begin this partnership with cultural exchange. The Crystalline Collective seconds this, Vexoth added. His earlier hostility completely vanished. We would learn from you. Other voices joined in, each species offering partnerships, exchanges, collaborations. Humanity was no longer the feared unknown. They were potential allies, teachers, students, partners in building something greater than any single species could achieve alone. As the chamber filled with the sound of galactic civilization embracing its newest members, Melkanos floated beside Chen's hologram. Captain, he said quietly, meant only for her. What will humanity do now? With the galaxy open before you and no barriers to hold you back? Chen looked at him with eyes that held the accumulated dreams of 50,000 years. What we've always done, Grand Arbiter, she said. We'll explore. We'll learn. We'll make mistakes and fix them. We'll probably scare you sometimes with how fast we move and how differently we think. But most importantly, she smiled, we'll remember this moment, when the galaxy gave us a chance instead of a cage, and we'll spend the rest of our existence proving that you made the right choice. And if you surpass us? Melkanos asked. If your projections prove correct, and humanity becomes the dominant force in the galaxy within millennia? Chen's expression grew serious. Then we'll remember what it felt like to be afraid and alone, and we'll make sure no other species ever feels that way again. We'll remember what it cost us to be imprisoned for our potential, rather than our actions. And we'll never inflict that on others. We'll remember this day, when fear gave way to understanding, and we'll build a future where every species, No matter how young or strange gets the chance to reach for the stars. She straightened, her hologram seeming to solidify with purpose. Humanity is awake, Grand Arbiter. And we didn't wake up angry. We woke up grateful. Grateful for the chance to finally join the conversation. To finally take our place among the stars. To finally say to the galaxy, hello. We've been waiting so long to meet you. The transmission ended, leaving the assembly in thoughtful silence. In the void beyond, Captain Chen's ship began to move, not away but toward the assembly station. An approach that was simultaneously an offer of trust and a promise of partnership. Kickstar watched it come and felt something he hadn't expected. Hope. Not fear of what humanity might become, but hope for what they might achieve together. The cage was open. The sleepers were awake. And the galaxy would never be the same, but perhaps, thought the Admiral as the human ship docked for the first time in 50,000 years, that was exactly what they needed. After all, sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't the monster in the cage. It's the assumptions that put it there in the first place.